So it's been a while since I've reviewed a racing game, and I thought why not play the worst racing game Steam has to offer, Flatout 3 Chaos and Destruction. Now I should mention that this isn't only the worst racing game on Steam. No, this was the lowest rated game on the entire platform until eFootball and War of the Three Kingdoms came along. And bear in mind that was less than a year ago, so this was the worst for a very, very long time. And before I start the review, I'd like to give some backstory on how Flatout 3 became what is apparently one of the worst games of all time. See, every Flatout game before this was incredibly well received, with all of them having an average Metacritic rating of 75, and the second one has overwhelmingly positive reviews. So what went wrong? Well, for some reason this time it wasn't made by Bugbear Entertainment, instead it was handed over to Team 6 Studios. And after a quick look at their game gallery, I'm hardly surprised it turned out the way it did. Their entire catalogue is almost entirely shovelware racing games, with my favourite being Tesco Ice Racing. Never in my life did I think I'd see a Tesco licensed game, let alone a Tesco licensed racing game. Needless to say, Flatout 3 was not well received. In fact, only 2 review sites gave it more than 4 out of 10. It got overwhelmingly negative reviews on Steam, and it's also listed as a psychological horror. Anyway, without further ado, let's see how bad Flatout 3 really is. So this game has no story, because, well, it's an action racing game, but how it works is you have several game modes to choose from, and by completing them you can unlock things like cars and maps. You also have a selection of thrilling characters like, just in case, off-brand Vin Diesel, Zario the Mechanic, Unknown Player, Eric Speed, and Xmas 2011. Oh, and according to the game, living in the North Pole, it didn't take her brains long to freeze. Now she thinks she can fly, just like Santa. Right. Seriously, it has to be the shittiest selection of characters I've ever seen. And it should come as no surprise, it doesn't matter at all which one you choose. In fact, the only real difference is some characters make the game glitch out more than it normally would, and they all have the same female voice pack. Now, I'm assuming someone who worked on this game was male, and even so, it couldn't have been very hard to find a generic male grunt sound on YouTube. Then again, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to problems this game has. Anyway, I'm going to go through all the game modes one by one and tell you what they're like to play. So first up is race mode, and as the name suggests, it's, well, a race. You simply choose one of the long, overly drawn out maps that you sometimes fall out of, then pick a car, and place either first, second or third to progress. Now you'd think it'd be hard to fuck this up too much, especially from a company whose library is almost exclusively racing games. I mean, they were shit racing games, but still you'd think they'd be at the very least playable. Yeah, no, that's not the case, because as expected, it's fucking awful in almost every single way. Firstly, the handling is on the same level as Pimp My Ride, and actually making the car go where you want it to is a Herculean feat. The first few races will be you crashing into absolutely everything in sight because the cars can't corner for shit, and the only use for the brakes is to make you swerve into the nearest house. Also, the destruction engine is completely broken. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground when it comes to how much damage is taken from a crash. Apparently, it's recorded in the corner, but that's bollocks. I'm fairly sure the only actual numbers are 0 and 100%. Because when you hit something, it either does absolutely nothing, or your car acts like it's made out of paper mache and fucking disintegrates. And this, paired with the horrendous handling, is a truly horrid combination. I should add that this also extends to the AI, who are complete morons who spend all their time overshooting corners, crashing into you, crashing into the environment, and generally just driving around like they've had 3 bottles of vodka before the race. Also, from time to time, they'll vanish into thin air and eject their spoilers from their engines. So, yeah, make of that what you will. So next up is Night Shift, which is a 1 versus 1 race set in the dark while it's raining and it's super foggy so you can't see shit. Now in general, this has all the same issues race mode does, that being that the cars handle like arse and the damage is all over the place. Although there is one thing that makes this game mode particularly difficult, and that's the incredibly inconsistent AI. See, unlike race mode where the AI is always a fucking idiot, Night Shift has 2 possible outcomes. Number 1, they're still a fucking idiot. Or number 2, they're a racing god who can go everywhere at top speed while you crash into every single thing because you can't see shit, or get crushed by a pillar. Now, if it is the second option, then just give up, because there's no possible way of winning. Although in my case, most of the time the AI was a complete idiot who crashed so many times it could hardly be called a race. So speed mode is basically just race mode, but with F1 cars. Essentially it's the same event I've already described with all the same problems, only this time it's much easier to destroy your car. See, in this event, they've made all the vehicles as durable as a piece of uncooked spaghetti, so every small impact will completely fuck your car. I imagine this was done because F1 cars in real life break up easily when they crash. I mean, the loading screen says, learning more about how vulnerable your car is utterly important. But it's not utterly important, it's utter bollocks. Because given how much of an uphill battle going round a corner is, it doesn't matter. And what I don't get is why make one aspect of the car realistic and leave out another defining feature of an F1 car, like, I don't know, the ability to go round corners really well, because I'm pretty sure in real life they don't handle like bulldozers. Also, for F1 cars, they're actually incredibly slow. In fact, they're slower than almost everything in the game, including, and I shit you not, a fucking tank. Now, I know it's not supposed to be realistic, and this is only when the tank is boosting, but still, you'd think an F1 car would be faster than 60 tons of steel. And the only thing that can't beat an F1 car is a double-decker bus. I'm not joking. So next up is Splat Out, which honestly is the least terrible game mode. Mainly because it's so bare bones I have barely anything to say about the actual gameplay. Essentially all you do is run over zombies and when you have enough points you win. My only real complaint is the 2-minute time limit is completely unnecessary. The problem is you can get combos when you hit multiple zombies in rapid succession, and the areas are so densely packed that you can get the required score in a matter of seconds. Especially when you're using something like the monster truck, because it's twice the size of everything else. Fun fact, my average time for completing every level was 25 seconds, and that included one outlier level where the zombies were badly placed. Without that, it was 13 seconds. I actually took to deliberately destroying my car once I had enough points, because I was getting so bored waiting for the timer. So now we come to some of the worst modes in Flatout 3, Battle Arena, and the infinitely worse Big Battle. Now these are your standard Demolition Derby events, well they're supposed to be anyway. Basically you drive around, crash into each other, and the only real difference is how many AI players take part. And honestly you have to wonder how much can actually go wrong with a premise this simple, and as it turns out, just about everything. Firstly, this is a fucking point-based Demolition Derby, which means you can be the first person to blow up and still win. How the actual fuck that works, I've got no idea, but what I do know is you will be the first person to die. See, the massive issue with both modes is that every other vehicle is essentially a player-seeking missile that is hell-bent on attacking you and only you. The worst level by far is one set over water, because you get pushed in so frequently there's no time to take any damage. And this is the result. Yeah, I got pushed in 28 times and just gave up. Although this actually gets worse when you move on to Big Battle. See, Battle Arena has 12 players. Big Battle has 24. 24 players who are hellbent on erasing your existence with brute force. This entire event is you being fucked sideways by every single thing in the area, and this only gets worse when the AI start using monster trucks, which are not only impossible to hit, but they can pick up your car and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, from what I've said, I wouldn't blame you for thinking this was impossible to win, but it's not. Actually, it couldn't be easier, because the damage system is so busted that when someone hits you, the game thinks it's the other way around and gives you points. And considering you spend every second colliding with something, your points go through the fucking roof and you win. Flatout 3, everybody. After this we have monster trucks, which is basically just a glorified battle arena with a new coat of paint. I mean, technically there are other objectives beyond just destroying opponents, such as destroying flaming barrels or double-decker buses. Yeah, no, it's pretty much the same. This is because the AI don't give a single fuck about the exploding barrels. No, they only care about one thing. You. Well, that or going around in circles. Fun fact, they're actually so intent on killing the player, you can get the lowest possible score and still place top 3. There was even a game where everybody got 0 points and I still placed because they'd all killed each other. And I should mention it's not just the enemies you have to worry about, because even your teammates are bloodthirsty. At one point, one of them came out of nowhere and just fucking killed me. And so we end with the worst mode in Flatout 3, Stuntman. What you do is launch your driver out of his car and try and score enough points to pass the level. This can be done by destroying objects, going a certain distance, or hitting targets. It reminds me very much of Hall of Meat from the Skate franchise. However, while Hall of Meat is fun and enjoyable, this is god awful and I never want to play it ever again. Firstly, the controls are arse. Apparently you can move your player mid-air, but it's sort of like using a straw and the power of your lungs to move a fucking cruise liner, because in reality you have almost no control whatsoever. And this, paired with the broken physics engine that often sends you flying backwards, elevates the difficulty of some levels to such a degree I'm convinced it's 100% luck. A good example of this is a building stage that took me forever. So you have to hit shelves to get points, and they're all on individual spaced out platforms. And due to the aforementioned lack of movement, what happens is you hit one, then you can't move. Although these stages don't even come close to hell. Like actual hell, which is pretty apt because not only are these levels set in hell, but playing them feels like a punishment from the devil himself. I should also mention that this is one of the glitchiest modes in the whole game. You'll routinely watch your character's coat stretch the entire distance of the map, get stuck in the environments, get sucked into air vents, clip through rocks, and explode mid-air for no reason. You can also jump out of vehicles that aren't convertibles. For example, the solid steel armour of a tank. So that's it, Flatout 3 Chaos and Destruction. Now, is it one of the worst games ever? Not really, at least not in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it's terrible, but it doesn't come close to something like Drake of the 99 Dragons or Little Britain. It's just not that offensively bad. Also, I don't think I can fully appreciate just how bad this game actually is, because I'm not a fan of the Flatout games. If I was, I can imagine my feelings for this would be a lot stronger, but in this case, they're just not. Overall, I think this is just another terrible racing game with a very, very easy explanation as to why it's terrible. That being that it comes from a developer that specialises in shit racing games. So, what did you expect? Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.